Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I have to admit, I was a little afraid to go live this morning because I've been having one of those mornings. Since I got back from dropping Ayla off at school, I dropped my coffee in the kitchen. I came into my office where I proceeded to drop my phone, which caused like an avalanche of things on my desk to fall behind my desk. And then I had to crawl because there's like a very small space between my desk and the wall. And I had to crawl back there to pick it all up. Yeah, and then I finally got it situated, and when I went to stand up, I like totally knocked over like three more things on my way. So yeah, hopefully that's all out of my system, and I'm good to go now, but who knows. Anyway, what am I up to this week? I have two things on my plate that I need to get done before the weekend, which is finish my client edit, which I am well on track to do, and then I have to plot my next Cup of Joe book. Which actually brings me to my next piece of news that I have for you, which was that last week I told you I was working on something that was different. It is a book, but it is not a fiction book. And it's something that I actually did for myself, but I realized that it's something that other authors might benefit from too. And the reason why I'm doing this, and I should have taken out one of my notebooks to show you beforehand. I'm going to see if I can grab it back here. Okay. I normally, when I plot my books, I have notebooks, and I will leave myself little sections for important things. Like when I start plotting a series, I have like random ideas that I'm just writing down about, like the main character and things like that. In the back of this, I have things like, my keywords that I'm going to use on Amazon and Smashwords and all those places where I upload my books. I have all the places that are in my fictional town. Another character list, and if you could see, there's writing everywhere. It's all over the place. It's a mess. And what happens is it starts out really neat and looks nice, and then as I write books in the series, I'm constantly adding to it, and I'm running out of room, and I'm squeezing things in, and basically it's all of that little info that we have to remember as authors because the readers surely remember it. Readers, you guys are amazing. You remember the tiniest little details from one book to the next, and writers, I guess we're a little like scatterbrained because we write so much, and like me, I'm working on 3 different series this year, which it's really hard to keep all that info, straight in your head. So I realized I needed to come up with a better system for myself, and I actually created the Writer's Book Series Workbook. The actual cover is slightly different than this one. This is my proof, and I did change the cover a little bit after my proof came. And since Amazon did not publish this until this Saturday, literally days ago, I don't have the perfect finalized copy. I only have this proof. But basically what this is, it is for me, but for you too, if you want to use it as well, to write down all of those things about your series. There is a spot on the cover here for you to write your series title and your name, because this whole thing does get personalized. The back is for, a little blurb about your overall series arc. And inside, it's things about, obviously, your characters, charts and things like that for you to keep track of that information. There is a place in here where I have important events that happen to the character and the book that it occurs in. And the reason for that is, let's say you have 2 characters to get married in your series. If you're like me, you go, wait a second, did they get married in book 4 or book 5? And you can't remember. So it's for things like that where you write it down and you can keep track of that information, so you don't have to go back and look it up, because I've wasted so much time going back and trying to look things up in my notes, trying to look things up in books themselves, and it really is just a huge time suck, and it's not something that you want to waste your writing time on. It also has a spot for important locations in your book. It includes things like who works there. If your character's constantly going to a store, you need to know if there's like the typical cashier or clerk or something like that they're going to run into, and information about them. Another thing too is there's a spot of, how do I get from this place to this place in my town? Little details like that, it can really bog down your mind, and that's why there's also places for you to add maps for your town, things like that. And then the one that I find most important is major events by book. So for each book, the major events that occur in that one, because so many times I've had to go back and say, what book did that happen in? Because I really don't remember. And it's, like I said, it just takes so much of your time to have to go back and try to look all of that up. I also have a chart for character deaths, because if you're like me, you kill off a lot of characters, and it is important to know when a character leaves a series. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a death if they move away and they're no longer in the series. It is important to know when that happened. And then I have something that I have always used for my books, which is my chapter list per book. And this is really important to me because not only does it have a space where, you can keep track of chapter length, what chapter page number you start on, but it keeps track of the day of the week that it is, the time of the day that it is, and any major events that occur in that chapter, which becomes really important to go back and look at later in a story to make sure that you're following a timeline that makes sense. So that is something that I always do. I typically write it out by hand, but now I have this nice chart here that I can just go ahead and fill out. And I included a lot of those because if you're like me and you write long series, you need a lot. I also have a spot for you to put a book blurb per book in the series because I like to keep track of those as well. For consistency's sake, just to make sure that all of your blurbs are following the same kind of format and they make sense together in the series. I also have a book checklist, and this is something else that I use where basically you keep track of the name of the book and where you are in the process. Drafted, it's edited, it's available for pre-order, it's been published. And then following that, a spot for comparison titles, why it is that you're comparing this book to another maybe more well-known book that's already out there, so readers know that if they like this title, they would also like your book. There's a section on marketing. So basically this is the title of the book, where you're marketing it, the date that the promotions are going to run, all of those things that we have to keep track of as authors. A place for review quotes. We always take review quotes and use those in different places of social media for advertising. I also have a spot to keep track of the titles of the books in your series in order, because if you're like me and you write a lot of books, it's hard to remember which book came first, second, third, fourth. Somebody will mention a book and I'm like, is that book 7? I don't know. So yeah, just to keep those in order. And then also possible future titles of books. I always plan those ahead because titles give me so much trouble, and it's just easier when I plan them ahead and I can just pull them right out of here and say that's the book that I'm going to write next. I also have a spot for formatting styles. If you format your own books, you have to keep track of all of those things to make sure it's consistent. Keywords, like you saw in my notebook, that I'm going to use on vendor sites. Those are the things that people type into Amazon and other places to get books in those certain categories or that type of book that they're looking for. And then there's also spots for you to keep track of copies sold in the first month, in the first year, things like that. And then finally, the end is just a notes section for anything else that you feel is important that you want to write down. So this is finally available on Amazon. I did not know that workbooks take longer to go through their process to be published. So when I called, the nice representative told me that, and it turned out that the very next day, he was keeping an eye on it for me, which was really nice. The very next day, Amazon went ahead and put it through, and he emailed me just to let me know, hey, it's out there, everything's good. So that was really nice of him to follow up with me. But yay, it's there. Now I can write in this because I wanted to show it to you guys before I started writing in it, but I've been dying to write in this. And the cover is matte, so you can go ahead and write right on this. That's what I wanted to make sure you could do. Both sides are customizable. So I'm really excited about this. I think I'm more excited to use it myself, but like I said, if it's something you think you might like, it is available on Amazon. It's called the Writer's Book Series Workbook. So if you think it will work for you, wonderful. If not, everybody has their own style, and I totally get that. So I'm sure there's something else for you out there. But if you want to check it out, it's on there. You can use the look inside or rewatch this if you want a closer look at the things in there. So that's all I have for you. That was kind of a lot. But I hope you guys have a fantastic Monday and a great week. And I will see you back here next Monday. Bye, guys.